Hello, welcome back to the Elite Football Show, or EFS Weekly Show as it's called nowadays. I'm delighted to be joined by, who's that in the top right-hand corner? That's not Haas. Damn. Who is that? Oh, it's Pauly. Hello.
It's a lot wider today.
Yeah, if it looks like God is like shining light on me, it's because the sun is literally rising straight into my apartment.
For God's sake. I mean, it's like 7:30 in the morning. I've never seen Pauly so confused before. And my usual co-host, good friend, unfortunately, he's behind the like and subscribe button. As you can see, Ciaran Power Hall. Yeah, that's his surname. How are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Not too bad. I guess I'm like and subscribe today like Pauly was yesterday. So I think it's fair that we swapped roles today.
If you click like and subscribe, it'll disappear, and then you could see all of Ciaran. So go ahead and click it.
Exactly. So hit like and subscribe. I love that, Pauly. Clever, very clever. And I'm the weekly show, clearly, as you can see the banner across my head. But Haas isn't here today. He's not feeling too well. So I invited the next best thing, and that is Pauly. So we're going to talk about some of the biggest news from the past week. And where can we start apart from the City shocking thrashing? And I know Paul's been banging this drum consistently about match fitness. And I said to him a week before, I said, look, Man City look good. They don't look like they need any time to sort of get into their groove. They don't need any time to be playing their best football. And thanks, City. Well, I'm quite happy they got thrashed, but thanks, because now Pauly's turning around and messaged me saying, match fitness. So Pauly, talk to me about that thrashing, because that is not down to City suddenly being a poor team, is it? It's purely down to the fact that, well, one, I don't know if Pep... You see with Pep's team, as they go along, they get worse, don't they? You saw that with Bayern. In that final season, he's so intense that by, sort of the third season, now he's in his fourth or fifth season now? It's the longest he's ever stayed somewhere. City are starting to show quite a few cracks, aren't they? They're starting to look not how they were in the first few years of his reign.
Yeah, this is what happens. I'm not going to blame this on Pep. This is what happens whenever a manager and a coaching staff are in one place for too long with the same players. It becomes stale. It wears on you. This is what undid Mauricio Pochettino at Tottenham, like when he wanted to refresh the squad and Daniel Levy didn't do it for him. This is why, Sir Alex Ferguson used to always... He had his core group of players, and everybody else he kind of got rid of after 4 years, and he would change up his coaching staff just to keep the message the same. But the cracks have been there with City, and now they just seem to be getting exposed. They don't have the defense. They have a weakness in defense that can be exposed, especially by quick counters. They don't have... Fernandinho is 35. He doesn't have the legs that he used to have, and City used to get bailed out by Fernandinho all the time. Mourinho used to bang this drum, the tactical fouls that he's never punished for, and it seems like he was never punished for. And that would help protect your defense. But then you look at the players who were back there. John Stones didn't turn out to be the player that City were hoping he would be. Your other players, Otamendi and everybody else who was back there, say what you want about them, but now they've just gotten old. And they can't. And last year, City were in shambles when Laporte was hurt. So now Laporte's back, but they don't have... Rodri is a very good defensive midfielder, but not as mobile as you want. And they don't have the protection that they once did. And it exposes them to quick counters like this. And does this loss say anything about City? No. I don't really, I think when City lose, it's going to be spectacular like this. They conceded 3 penalties. I didn't see the match, but from what my friends told me, they were pretty legit. It wasn't, we weren't getting the soft, I flicked the ball into your hand thing that seems to be going through the league now. So I think it's just a one-off, but City are prone to these one-offs. So what's going to define City's title challenge is how many one-offs are they going to have this year.
Yeah, fantastic points. I want to just draw on a few of them and pass them over to Ciaran. The first point is, this idea of when City do lose, it is spectacularly completely true. Remember the 4-0 in Everton in Pep's first season. The second point is the defensive fragility. They've spent 450 million on the defense. And I actually messaged this in the group chat, didn't I, guys? Remember, I said, if Ollie had been given 450 million, or any other manager for that matter, maybe not Lampard because he's not very good, but if you'd given Ollie 450 million, I guarantee that defense would look a lot more organized and a lot better than what City's defense looks like. So surely that's a concern, isn't it? I mean, I know that it's one game. I don't want to be one of those that jumps in and says City aren't going to be very good this year, because they're going to be there or thereabouts. They're probably going to get second. I can't look past Liverpool at the moment. We'll talk about that later. But when you spend that much money, is it a coaching thing or is it a personnel thing? Because Otamendi is not good enough, as Pauly said. Stones definitely hasn't turned out the way he was meant to. They lost Company, which is a massive amount of experience and leadership in the squad. They've lost David Silva. You know, these are players that have been there, done it. Zabaleta. They've lost a lot of leadership. So is this a question of the recruitment's wrong? Because I actually also said that when you look at the players they've been going for, they went for Koulibaly, they went for Koundé, obviously they've got Ruben Diaz now. They've looked at Jimenez. They're all different types of players. It just smacks of desperation. That's not what City are like. City know the player they want, the exact sort of style of play. Ruben Diaz is different to Koulibaly, and who's different to Koundé. Koundé's quite a short centre-back as well. They're all different players. So does it smack of desperation for you when you're looking at obviously what happened? I mean, look, they responded, didn't they? They went and bought in a very good defender. But I think he might struggle in this City side.
Yeah, look, we know with City that the problem has been defending the last couple of seasons. When it started off under Pep, the reason why they were very good defensively was because of Vincent Kompany. He was the leader in that defense and the leader in that team. But the problem is that it's hard to replicate that when someone at that stature leaves. It's the equivalent of when the likes of Roy Keane left United, or when now Rooney's gone. You have one of those leaders that it's very hard to kind of separate and kind of get somebody else in, especially in your defensive line. And it's not just the odd couple players that haven't made it at City in terms of their defense. You had John Stones, you had Otamendi, you had Mangala, you had, who else have they brought in? Laporte, who came in, who's been an excellent player, but he's not really that dynamic centre back that's really going to command your defense. I think we can talk for a while about their wing backs, how they brought in a few before, didn't work out, had to bring in more, and Mendy's one of those that we always mention, that he's more of their social media guy than their actual left back. So yeah, the recruitment's been bad, because it was the same thing when the likes of Otamendi and Mangala came in. They weren't their first options, but they rushed in defenders because they were performing poorly. And I see the same thing happening now, because you look at the players that they've been interested in. So they brought in Ake, which, look, he's going to be a good defender. Is he worth the money that they spent on him? Probably not, but who is in the transfer market now?
But that also doesn't matter to City.
Yeah,
it's not like they're like, it's not like he cost 41 million out of a 100 million pound budget.
Yeah.
Like,
not like a United
41 million
budget,
out of, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then you look at then the other three that you mentioned, that they were in for Koulibaly, Koundé, and then eventually got Ruben Diaz. They're all different types of centre backs. So it seems like it's one of those where City are just trying to throw money at a problem that might be more kind of to do with the system that they're currently playing that doesn't suit the players that they have defensively. Because like you said, before, when they had Fernandinho, he was able to get them out of a lot of holes. When they had the likes of Yaya Toure, he was kind of that bruising centre midfielder that helps the defence. They don't have that now. The reason why City are going to come second, and if Liverpool go through a bad stage, they'll get a chance to win the league. And the reason for that is their attack. Their attack is probably one of the best in the league. But the problem is, because of how good it is, it leaves a lot of holes in the defense. So you saw early on in that Leicester game, it looked like City could have blitzed Leicester early on, because it didn't look like Leicester were even at the races when they were playing. And then suddenly you started to see those counter attacks happen, and that's pretty much how they scored every single goal. That they sat back, they waited for City to make a mistake, and then they broke on them. It's how we beat City so many times last year as well. Unless City are able to shore up whatever defensive frailties that they're seeing the last 2 seasons, they're not going to be able to go on a huge unbeaten run, because teams know how to play against them now.
Yeah, fantastic points, Pauly. I'm going to come to you for the last point before we move on to the next topic. Ciaran, fantastic points. Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? United know Ollie beats City 3 times, and you could say a few of those times we didn't necessarily have all our best players playing, but the fact of the matter is,
pulled one of them out of his ass, though.
Yeah. But you got to say as well though that if you've got pace on your forward line, you can get that ball from A to B quickly. You can really run at this defense. One point I want to make about Ake, I did say, I remember when we were linked with him, I said, I don't think he's better than what we've got. I didn't want us to go and spend 41 million. I think he's a good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I think he's been City's better centre-back since the start of the season. I mean, Laporte hasn't played much. I think he had COVID, didn't he? Or he's been unfit, something or the other. But when you look at Ake, I was happy we didn't go for him. City paid a premium. Now, the problem is that we were talking about the organisation of the defence. The question is it a personnel problem or is it a coaching problem? So, and I compared it to United. Talk to me about why you think United are more organised than City.
Well, it's Harry Maguire. That, for his flaws, and he's got them because who doesn't? Name me a player we can all find you a flaw in him. He's got his flaws. He lacks pace. He's great organizationally. He's very vocal, which has been coming out there. As soon as we went behind closed doors, all of a sudden journalists were tripping over themselves to try to write articles about how much you can hear Harry Maguire in that Sheffield match when we came back. Everybody heard it 8 minutes into the game when he told Luke Shaw to effing switch on. They were raving about it against Lask. So he's kept that United defense more organized. But like when you're asking, is it a personnel thing? Is it a coaching thing? And I think is it a team building thing? I think it's a combination of all three. Remember, they bought John Stones not for his defending qualities, but for his ability to on the ball. They signed, because that's what Pep wants. They signed Claudio Bravo for his ability on the ball, and then they realized he's got great ability on the ball. He just can't use his hands, which for a goalkeeper is kind of important. It's the only footballer where it's important.
And that's something that's gone out of the game, hasn't it, Pauly? You look at Kepa. Kepa was bought because of his ball playing abilities, not because he can make a save. And this is a problem with football. And something I want to ask you quickly. You're making a fantastic point. I just want to draw on that. You say that Pep bought Stones for his ball playing abilities, passing ability. Well, actually, it's as well. Pep said, "Oh, if you make a tackle, you've done a mistake." Is that him that said that? So if that's his mentality when it comes to,
I think it was Javi Alonso, but that is Pep's mentality too.
That doesn't work in the Premier League. It's not that I think it's an extreme. Like it's not that you Pep in his first season said, "I don't teach tackling." That's what he said. And it's if you read the game well, you can get like Michael Carrick didn't tackle people, and Michael Carrick was fantastic. But not everybody can do that. Some people read the game better than others. Some people are naturally better game readers. So Carrick, you could teach Tom Cleverley to read, all these things. But at the end of the day, like he doesn't have the instincts of Michael Carrick. So he's going to be put in a situation that he needs to make a tackle. But for defenders, I think like that ball playing ability, that technical ability on the ball, it adds so much to your attack. And that at 20, 21, 22, 24, you don't learn. So I think the purpose for going after a John Stones is, okay, he can do the ball handling, and we could teach him the defense. But it's a question is, can Guardiola be that guy? And I also have a question of who's calling the shot. I think Guardiola got his players. He got he brought in however much money worth of fullbacks. He brought in John Stones. He brought in Claudio Bravo. But he wanted Maguire, didn't he?
That didn't work. That didn't work. And then he had to bring in Ederson and new players. And now it's who is he bringing in? Because Grace Robertson, who is fantastic, and she just wrote this like 4-part newsletter about Guardiola and what he does in the Champions League and how that's is that what does he overthink things in the Champions League and that's why he isn't winning? But she tweeted the other day when they signed Ruben Diaz, we should be clear that Ruben Diaz was not second choice behind Koulibaly. He wasn't even third choice behind Koulibaly and Koundé. Harry Maguire a year ago was first choice. And then the team that Pep and Chicky Bergstam wanted to build contains Harry Maguire, Jorginho, and Alexis Sanchez, which is very true. So all of a sudden, if Pep's not getting his players and he's on the same page as Chicky Bergstam, who is City's director of football or some similar title, who's calling the shots at City?
Yeah, fantastic points. Ciaran, do you want to answer that? I mean, I want to pick up on, you're right, they've missed out on...
They missed out on who?
I like Roger. I think
he's... Oh, you completely froze.
Yeah.
Did I freeze? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi is a little bit dodgy, guys. So if I do cut out, just say it. But Ciaran, Jorginho was the first choice. I mean, City pretty much had that deal wrapped up, and obviously when Sarri moved, I think Jorginho would have been fantastic at City. It's exactly what they needed.
So was Fred.
Yeah, Fred
was on their radar.
Fred was on their radar as well. It's strange, but City have missed out on their top targets if you think about it. I mean, Ferran Torres top target for them? I'm not so sure.
I don't know, but they have been buying well, because like they're buying. Yeah. It does, like, the players that they are buying are young players that, like, if Pep were to leave, a new manager would be thankful that they had them. So there is some sort of long-term strategy in mind, and maybe but if it's not coming from your director of football, who's it coming for? And maybe that's what it was, because, we just said Rodri lacks the pace Jorginho lacks pace too. That's why Chelsea gave up a lot of counters. Alexis Sanchez, we saw, it wasn't just that he didn't like United. He was shot. Like he came and he was washed up already. So, like, Harry Maguire lacks pace. So if you're conceding counters, is Harry Maguire going to stop them? So someone at City that's not Pep and Cheeky Bergsten is being like, you know what, your players like aren't the right idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to add that, Ciaran?
Yeah, look, you can say that, but I think City have a fairly good scouting staff there that when they don't get one player that they want, they look at a similar type of player and bring them in. Yeah, look, it's much better. You see City, they don't get a player, so they move on to the next. And that's the thing we don't see at United. We see that we have our targets. We're told that we have plan B and C, but then when it comes to plan B and C, we're like, well, that's completely different to what plan A is in terms of the actual style of player, which is kind of what we're seeing now with kind of Sancho and Dembele. Yeah, they play the same position, but they're completely contrast in terms of how their game is. So to be honest, if we had something similar to what City had, even if you missed out on your targets, you could still bring in the players that they have, I don't think anybody would be complaining. So while it might not be Pep's first option, I'm sure that the manager has to kind of see off if a deal's going to happen. Because if a player comes in that Pep doesn't want, I would doubt that actually happens at Man City.
Yeah,
but that's absolutely. But like, they also they have the better scouting system, but they also have the leeway now because they've hit on so many. Like, imagine if Alexis Sanchez was Ollie's first choice and the higher up said, no, we're not going to bring him in. We're going to go for Bernardo Silva instead. Like, we'd be freaking out. Give the manager the players that they want. But at this point, like, City have got, like, whoever is calling the shots has gotten it right so often that if Pep doesn't get his first choice, there is that calmness that, like, okay, well, whoever we bring in will be fine. Just maybe not when it comes to defenders.
The way I look at it, last point on this, guys. The way I look at it is some fantastic points, but that's because City have a director of football. Whether it is Bergstein or not, I don't know who's making it. Like Pauly says, we don't know who's making the calls. But when you look at Liverpool's example with Salah, their number one target, Klopp's number one target was Julian Brandt. They missed out on Julian Brandt, and Klopp didn't want Salah, but they obviously looked at the analytics, and whoever made the shot, it probably was Michael Edwards, was said, no, Salah's going to be quality for you, and now he's one of the best players in the world, I would say. Yeah. One of the most selfish players, but an incredible player. And this is a point with United. When you, I mean, Paul, you were on I don't know if you're on the podcast, which I did, the breakdown banter, but Abdul was talking about, like, if you look at the data analytics, the most similar player to Jadon Sancho is Calvin Stengs, the Dutch lad from Feyenoord, I think, or PSV. So so from United going from Sancho to Dembele, they're completely different players. And then Gareth Bale was mentioned, Douglas Costa, Perisic. These are not similar players. So you want and this is a question, like, how are United deciding who they want? What are they basing their list on, and what they're basing what qualities they're looking at? Because as we know, Joel Glazer turns around and says, oh, I think this is value here, I think there's no value here. At the end of the day, they're actually not buying a like-for-like player, and this is a problem at United. So I think with City, they probably do that, although it's a bit strange, isn't it? They went from Maguire, I guess, to to Ake, and there'll be Ruben Diaz. So I don't think they're similar players, but it's an interesting conversation for another time. But we've got to move on. Pauly, I'll come to you first because I know you've got a lot to say about this. Frank Lampard looks to be under pressure, and you just have to look at Chelsea Twitter the last week or so. It's quite enjoyable to watch because they've been giving it the big un. Frank Lampard loves to give it the big un, and he always taking L's, isn't he? Because at the end of the day, he's chatting so much. He just needs to know his place. But what I will say about Lampard is that in his defense, like, he's clearly out of his depth right now. It's not his fault. He got given the job way too early. He could have gone on, stayed at Derby a bit longer, developed and become a decent manager. The point is, you've given him one of the hardest jobs with one of the most demanding owners. He's also got one of the biggest transfer kitties. But the point is that he's clearly out of his depth. And you look at the performance against West Brom. It's not just West Brom, but it's whole of last season. You can't coach the defense. The attack's okay. They can attack well, but that defensive system is non-existent. And I saw a tweet about Thiago Silva. We all knew this was going to happen to Thiago Silva, didn't we? Thiago Silva is still an asset for me. This is how I see it. You can disagree, it's fine. But we knew Thiago Silva would come to the Premier League at the age of 36. We knew straight away, Chelsea player high line, pace, gone. Done. Absolutely done. But if you have a proper system, a manager could bring in Thiago Silva with a proper defensive system, and Thiago Silva could be absolute quality. I fully believe that. And I saw a tweet from someone. He's been on TalkSport a few times, and he basically turned around and said, Thiago Silva is a system player. He was a system player at PSG. He had Marquinhos there to obviously cover for him. Kimpembe, there was pace around him. He's coming to a side with a manager who has no system. Of course, he's going to get exposed like that, and he was exposed. And look, people, and I said this to you, Ollie gets so much rubbish from the press. We've spoken about it many times in the group chat. So much criticism, yet Lampard goes he goes criticism free. How is that fair? Like, just talk to me about Lampard's coaching ability, and then talk to me about sort of that criticism that Ollie gets or other managers get, which Lampard seems to get away with.
The English media is not fair. That's the world for you, Haider. Is Lampard's English? He's their golden boy. They want him to succeed. I bet you they wish Gerrard would come south of the border so they could play up a Lampard-Gerrard angle. That's what it is. And I for some reason the media has just never wanted Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be the guy. When he was winning, when he first came, it was always, this is unsustainable. Then despite winning 8 out of his first 9 in the Premier League, when he won 2 out of 8, it was, the 8 of 9 don't count. It's only the 2 of 8. There's questions about, all right, Lampard went to Derby County and he did a good job there. He did a good job, but ultimately, what he finished? He finished 6th and then lost in the playoff final. Chelsea gave him the job, and I don't think it was. He just needs time, and that's not something you're going to get at Chelsea. I think he came in the right situation when they had the transfer ban and they could just let their kids play. But don't give me this nonsense about, they had a transfer ban and everything. They brought in Christian Pulisic. They didn't have him a year before.
And Kovacic. They spent 100 million.
Yes, they did. But Kovacic was there a year prior.
He was there. Yeah, so but still, they spent money.
Right, but it's not like they had to integrate him into the team. Pulisic, they had to integrate into the team. Tammy Abraham came into the team. Mason Mount came into the team. Kurt Zouma and Tomori came back from loans. That team that they started at Old Trafford on the first week of the season, 6 players. I think it was 6 players weren't in the team last season. So he still got a new team and a new young team, which is what Solskjaer got. And he did well with them, but he had his flaws. And they had very similar flaws. When they had all of the ball against teams that were going to sit back and try to pick you off on the counter, they were very vulnerable. And the difference was halfway through the season, Solskjaer figured out how to beat that. Did it help that he got Bruno Fernandes? Yes. Did it help after the restart that he got Paul Pogba back? Yes. But he also managed to stop conceding goals. Chelsea stopped scoring goals when teams were putting back, and they started conceding, or they didn't stop scoring goals. They scored the same amount, and they didn't stop conceding them. And part of that is because they don't have a midfield that can stop a counterattack. Jorginho is immobile as can be. And part of that is they are terrible at set pieces. And part of that is if you shoot the ball right at Kepa, he's going to find a way to let it go in the net. And that really did not help them in any way, shape, or form. I mean, replace Kepa with a bad goalkeeper and Chelsea finished third. But the set piece thing is really my concern, because if I was a Chelsea fan, I have not gone over to Chelsea Twitter to dance on their graves because United Twitter keeps me busy enough. I'm not going to substitute.
Yeah, we can't exactly turn around and make fun of other teams. Right. We're not exactly stellar.
Also, like Chelsea Twitter spend their whole day on United Twitter. Like, I'm not stooping to their level. Kai Havertz scores a goal against Barnsley and Bruno Fernandes starts trending. At Derby County were very susceptible to set pieces, specifically corners. And Chelsea conceded goals from corners last year at a higher rate than the best teams in the world score them, which is just simply astonishing. And that's something that goes back to Derby County, which tells you it's got to be tactical. It's got to be the system. And that's a flaw that Ollie has too. United concede a lot from set pieces. But then when you bring up Thiago Silva and you say, well, he's going to be exposed for lack of pace, if he had a manager, that's my question, is does he have a manager that can hide that? Because you bring that up all the time about Harry Maguire. No pace. Victor Lindelof, no pace. How often does their no pace lead to a goal against Manchester United? Not often, because they have a manager that is only a few times,
isn't it? Yeah. And you got to think about it as well, Pauly, quickly. Matic is slow as well. So if you're putting, you put Kante's sitting in front usually. I know Jorginho's been playing, but Kante's in there as well when he's not injured. But Kante's mobile. Kovacic has played that. They're mobile. Matic is immobile, and yet still we complain about our defense, but we know that if you put a Bailly next to Maguire, his performance will go up 10%. We know that, and that's the point.
When Solskjaer came in, United were susceptible on the counter. You look at those two games against Wolves, the FA Cup and the league, where United dominated the game. They had everything, but they couldn't break down Wolves, and Wolves picked them apart on the counter. And they go to Molineux in the second week of the season, and Wolves can't get any kind of counters going. They can't, because United fixed that problem. They conceded 2 or 3 goals from counters last year. One of them was Matty Longstaff in the slowest counter known to man, with just a long-range shot that rolled into the net. Like, Solskjaer fixed that problem. Can Lampard do that? I don't know, because he hasn't done it since the beginning of last year. He got that hot start, won 5 in a row, September, October, and since then just managed to, and that was basically what Leicester did. They got that hot start and they padded a lead, and it was a question of, can they hold on to it? Leicester couldn't. Chelsea managed to, but United had a manager that started slow and built himself up, addressed his problems during the year. Like, which manager would you rather have? The one who starts out hot but then can never get it back and can't address the problems, or the one who struggles at the beginning, identifies those struggles, works on them, fixes them, and improves as the year goes?
Yeah, fantastic points. Ciaran, I'll pass it over to you now. You look at what Pauly's saying. He's right. Look, we all know that there's some young managers in the league, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but nobody's expecting them to be the finished article now at all. No one's expecting them to be the finished article, but what they're expecting is for being able to identify the problems, as Pauly says, and then to fix them. That's the sign of a good manager. You can still learn on the job in these big clubs, I think, but you got to see progress. And with Lampard, he had problems, right? So he had a problem at striker, so he brought in Werner. He has a problem at right wing. Okay, Ziyech's injured. I think Ziyech's going to be fantastic, by the way. I think he really will transform that team. Kai Havertz, one of the best youngsters around, they bought him. You want a defender, Thiago Silva. Wanted a new left back, Ben Chilwell. Want a goalkeeper, Mendy. They also want Declan Rice, who they're probably going to sign by the end, I think. I would not be surprised to see Rice in Chelsea's shirt. I'm probably missing someone. They've bought so many players. I mean, we've bought Van der Beek.
Malang Sarr as well.
Yeah. So I'm saying, he's every single area that he needed to address, they've addressed it.
Except midfield.
Okay, except midfield. But then he's still got Kovacic, Jorginho, Kai Havertz, Mason Mount, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's not like, but that's 6 options. There's depth there. Whether they're all at the right level, but Kai Havertz, who will be one of the best youngsters around. One of the best players around eventually. He's one of the best youngsters now. You can't complain, and that's the point. Like, if Ollie had been given the players that he wanted, if he wanted given a left back, a centre back, a right winger, a defensive midfielder, you would see that United would go up a level. I know it takes time to gel, but I see Chelsea have gone down a level, or they've stayed at the same, and that's the problem. People go on at Ollie, and Chelsea Twitter love to go in at United and Ollie and say Ollie's a PE teacher. Even our own fans say that. But at the end of the day, Ollie's taken that team from A to B. He can't take it to C unless he gets those players in. Lampard's got those players in, and he does not know what he wants to do with them.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, Lampard, for me, I've always said he has one plan in a game, and when that doesn't happen, he struggles. Even when he brings on subs, it doesn't matter. They play the same way. They play the same formation. Everyone knows what they're going to do. And that's the problem. That's the reason why towards the end of the season, they were found out by a lot of teams. You saw West Ham completely dominate Chelsea when they played against them. They knew exactly how to play against them. And it's the same thing now. Like the game where Chelsea won was against Brighton, where realistically they were very lucky to come away with all 3 points in that game. They had some great goals. Yeah, so were we. But when you look at the other Chelsea performances, they've been just as bad as United have. And the difference is with Chelsea is they should have had much longer to be able to be in training and be in preseason, because they didn't play European football at the end of the season. So they've been all together. So there's no reason they shouldn't be able to kind of gel with one another. People can say that, oh, but they have all these new players in. Yeah, but they haven't all played straight away in one game. They still have a lot of the players from last season. Going back to what you said about if Ollie was back the same way as Lampard was, if Ollie was back, you probably would have seen the likes of Haaland, Sancho,
Bellingham,
Telles, Upamecano, like all of them would have come in if he was back in the same way, just based on they were his first options. Okay, Pauly, they were his first options.
I agree with that. I also agree. I would say that some of them still chose not to come.
No. What you're saying is,
that's not the
if
point.
Ollie got his, what you're saying is, if Ollie got
his way.
Yeah, if Ollie got his way and he had those players in the team, what Ciaran is trying to say, I'll let you say what you're trying to say. Yeah. I know what you're trying to say.
What if he was able to get those players in? Then I don't think we would see United kind of struggling now or being roughly at the same level. Because I always say is you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You shouldn't be staying the same. Most teams don't stay the same. That's why even when you win the league, you need to improve your squad, because if you don't, other people are going to try and chase you. That's why you saw Liverpool kind of improve with Jota and Thiago, because they needed to bring fresh blood in to kind of improve. Because like we said, even going back to Pochettino, is if you don't improve your squad, it becomes stale. And we see the same thing with City, that if the players around don't see kind of new faces coming in, they kind of go back into their bad habits that you're trying to get rid of. For me, I think if Ollie got all of those players that he wanted in, I think it would be a no-brainer that the top 3 teams would be Liverpool, City, and United. The fact that Chelsea have spent over 200 million already, and they're planning on spending another, whatever it is, 50, 60 million on Rice, and people would still say, oh, I'm not sure if they can challenge. That's a big slide on Lampard, because if any team spends 200 to 300 million in a
you have to challenge.
You have to be challenging. Yeah. If we spent that much money, let's just say we got Sancho, we bought, I don't know, a striker, a centre midfielder for another 60, 70 million, that went close to the amount they spent. The amount of pressure you would see every single day in the newspaper on Ollie would be ridiculous, which just goes to show, again, there's a favoritism in the English media for English managers, and that's why you always see Lampard get more time. I think Lampard was brought in, yes, well, it was a good time because there was the transfer ban. The difference between that and Ollie is the original reason for Ollie to be brought in was for the short term, but he was very successful for months. And it's hard when you have a manager that is hardly losing a game, get you through PSG in the Champions League, that you don't extend the contract because the players wanted him. The fans wanted him. So it's a lot of pressure to say, no, we're not going to keep him. We're going to go for somebody else. Maybe when we look in a couple of years' time, maybe that would have been a better option, but we can't tell that right now. I think Lampard only managing for one season at Derby doesn't merit being in the manager's seat for Chelsea, in my opinion.
Completely agree.
Haider, there was something you said at the beginning of that. If we gave Ollie the players that Lampard has gotten, and I think the question is, who's calling the shots at Chelsea? Did Lampard just say, I need a new striker, I need a new right wing, I need a new this? Because what has been clear over the first few games is Lampard's gotten these players. He doesn't know how to use them. He has been, and think about who was their best player after the restart was Christian Pulisic, who is still hurt. Timo Werner plays off on the left and he keeps drifting out there. That's where Pulisic was at his best. Now, Pulisic is a very smart player who could play across the front three, and I think he'll be able to adapt.
He'll probably play on the right, to be honest.
Yeah. He played on the right at Dortmund too, and he's very smart. He's got he's up there with Bruno Fernandes in terms of how he sees the game.
They're missing him massively, aren't they, Paul? Let's be
They
honest.
are.
Pulisic is a fantastic player.
If you have him on the left and Werner is standing on top of them, will that negate the effectiveness of one or both of them? Moving him over, you move him over to the right. Will that negate Hakim Ziyech, or will that negate Kai Havertz? He doesn't know how to use all these players. And when you look at Solskjaer, at least there's very much a plan. When he signed Bruno Fernandes, there was no, I have to change my system. It's no, you slot in right here. And there's been a plan with his players. Like, at least at the, you say, like, okay, who is their plan B and who is their plan C, and how Dembele is not comparable, but we know who Solskjaer's plan A is. There's a reason that this Jadon Sancho thing has been dragging on all summer, and that's because Solskjaer just keeps saying, no. Like, there is no comparable player. There is no alternative. Jadon Sancho has the qualities that are exactly what I need for this position. We saw it, though. He wanted Jack Grealish. Donny van de Beek became available. So he said, right, we'll take him because, what has he done since Van de Beek came in? He hasn't rebuilt his formation. He hasn't tinkered around. It's been the same formation. And he goes, Van de Beek, this is where you slot in. Right now, Bruno's there. So you're going to play in the League Cup. You could also play in this position. When Paul Pogba came back, he didn't rebuild the formation again. It was, right, you slide in right
You
there.
fit into the system.
He knows,
because there is a system. That's the point.
He knows exactly what he wants to do, and he knows exactly what kind of player he wants and where they have to go. Whereas Lampard just got all these players in. Are they who he wanted? Now, I think United should have gone for Timo Werner. 54 million is a joke. He's worth so much more than that. And in June, United Twitter was killing me, being like, we have Martial. And I was like, cool, we could have both. But
no, I completely agree. I was so for the Werner signing, and he's looking worse than he is. And people saying, he's not very good, mate. Like, Lampard doesn't know how to use him. He didn't really play up front by himself.
I think Lampard used the same formation twice this season in 4 games. Not. I don't think he has.
But the problem is also using Werner in a way that we use Martial. He's making Werner come to the ball. Werner, when he's best, is when he's running in behind.
Yeah. But who did Chelsea have to play that ball? Who did Chelsea have to play that pass?
Kai Havertz.
Kai Havertz should be able to.
Yeah, right. But then you need to drop Kai Havertz in. So you need to come up with a system that allows Kai Havertz to do that. We saw it kind of in the first game where he oddly played Ruben Loftus-Cheek as like his second striker, and Kai Havertz
on the wing.
He played him on the wing, but like also kind of in midfield. It was kind of like a reinvented 4-4-2 with like Havertz as an inverted right wing central midfielder. If you look at where their average formation is, it's like, why is Havertz just standing on top of, I think it was Conte? And it was like, you don't know how to use these guys. And how do all right, so Havertz could play that pass, but how do you get Havertz into a position where that'll free up Timo Werner? Because United get it by Martial drops, Rashford runs into the space, and Martial either does a flick on or he's a good enough passer to do it. Or Pogba can just play that pass directly. Lampard, that's the difference, is that nobody seems to want to do, because the popular thing is to say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has no tactics, but he clearly knows exactly how he wants his team to play, who he wants to do that. Lampard brought in a bunch of players, and now it's like, go out there and play, guys. Here's a bag of balls.
Yeah, but there's
and I'll make one more point after.
Yeah, there's no structure to their attack. You can see it. They're kind of, the players just attack in whatever they see in front of them. But when you look at United, you see them attack in triangles and diamonds when they're passing the ball. It's constant movement. You don't see that from Chelsea. You see someone running, someone else trying to find a bit of space. When the space isn't there, they don't know what to do. And that's the issue. I don't see a structure in their attack or really their defensive play. And it's something that Lampard's going to have to improve on as he gets through. Look, he has quality players. He should be able to beat a lot of teams in the Premier League. But again, like I said, if plan A works for Lampard, it's fine. But once that doesn't work, I don't see him changing things too much.
Yeah, last point I'm going to make, guys, because you've got to move on, is that we know Ollie's got a system. We did a podcast on it. We know that he's got a system. He has tactics. The issue for me is the tempo and the urgency, which needs to go up. Yeah. I think once that we've seen that after the restart. Once that goes up, United look like a completely different team. And that's the thing. I think when I look at Lampard, that's clear. We know exactly how Ollie wants to play. If anyone says Ollie doesn't have a system, look at, as Pauly said, look at how the players are slotted in. Look, Pogba came in. Pogba, in the past, when we used to have him, Jose didn't know what to do with him. He played him really deep, then he played him further forward. He didn't know what to do. Ollie didn't even change the system. He said, right, Paul, you're going to play next to Matic. You're going to play deeper. Bruno is the one that goes forward. And when you look at the wingers, you know the wingers are going to cut in. You know Luke Shaw's going to overlap. And that's the thing. You know Martial's going to drop and take the ball to feet because he's excellent at that. And that's the point. You know exactly what everyone's going to do. I know that. What frustrates us is that we know that there's players in our team and our first 11 that just aren't good enough to take us to that next level. With Lampard, you don't know what he's going to do. There's no system. The defense is a joke. And I'm going to ask you one question, guys, before we move on. Just answer yes or no. Do you think Lampard lasts the season? Pauly, I'll go to you first.
No.
When do you think? Christmas?
I don't want to put a time on it because that's the one thing that I've been getting wrong this summer.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay, what do you think, Ciaran? Does he last? You know what I'm worried about, Ciaran? I'm worried about if he goes, there's Pochettino on the market. He would look at that Chelsea squad and think, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, Callum Hudson-Odoi.
I don't think so. I don't think so because Poch is a loyal guy. He wouldn't go to Barcelona because of his Espanyol thing.
He's waiting for United, mate.
But United's not a direct rival to Spurs the way Chelsea are.
That's a good point.
I think Lampard lasts the season. I don't know if he is the manager next season, but I think he lasts to the end of this season anyway. Because I still think it's going to be Chelsea and United in the top four. So I think as long as he keeps kind of top four, and if let's say they come third, I think Chelsea, the board will be fine with him because it's hard to sack someone that means so much to your club.
Roman Abramovich is a very, very ruthless man. I wish we had a bit more of that ruthlessness in our board. Okay, guys, let's move on. We've got 20 minutes left. We've got 3 more topics. We might as well touch on the younger and less experienced managers. I mean, we've spoken about Lampard in depth, so we don't need to talk about him. Spoken about Ollie as well. Seems to be a bit of a trend around Europe. You see Pirlo at Juventus. You've seen Zidane, obviously, at Real Madrid. Guardiola when he started at Barcelona. Scott Parker at Fulham. But let's talk about Mikel Arteta because I'm quite impressed with what I've seen from Arteta. I think he's clearly a manager who knows how he wants to set up his team. That's the key. He has a system, and the players have improved under him. You look at that left side, particularly Kieran Tierney looks a fantastic signing now if he can keep fit. Aubameyang's looking positive on that left-hand side. We were seeing Saka a lot, but now obviously this season he's not played much. But the point is, we know how they're going to play. And in big games, he's got a formula that works. Okay, it's very Jose Mourinho-esque. Sit deep, hit them on the counter. But it bought them the FA Cup. But Pauly, a lot of people are calling him Jose Arteta, saying he just parks the bus. I mean, what are your thoughts on Arteta's sort of managerial, I guess, tactical acumen? And have you been impressed with what you've seen so far?
I think he's a little overrated. And that's not to say he's not good. I think everybody was just very quick to anoint him as he's going to be amazing. And it's like, what proof do we have of that? Yes, he was Pep Guardiola's right-hand man at Man City. He's been given credit for a lot of the match-to-match tactics and tactical plans that City had. And, they started losing some games when he left. And people were saying, well, this is normally an area that Arteta handled. But we've also seen plenty of very good number twos go on to not be good managers. Carlos Queiroz comes to mind. He was a fantastic number two.
Steve McLaren.
Carlos Queiroz should be credited with that 07-08 United team, which is the best United team I've ever seen. And I understand that the 99 team won the treble, but the 08 team would have wiped the floor with them.
They were incredible.
Yes.
One of the greatest sides we've ever had. They had everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Just fantastic. But then Queiroz left and he never really found success as a manager. So not every number 2 makes it. What concerns me is now I think he's more than Mourinho Arteta, but it's easy. If you come into this job, you have two jobs. You need to build this team for the future, and kind of blow it up and restart. You have Mesut Ozil, who what's he going to do? You also have to get results now. That's the line that Ollie's been trying to navigate all year when he's like, we're rebuilding, but also like, I understand if I finish 9th, I'm going to get sacked. So, even if I finish outside the Champions League place in year 1, not so much this year, but year 1, that's one thing, but finishing 9th is a different thing. Arteta needs to get results. He's got an owner who is, if you think the Glazers are cheap, meet Stan Kroenke. So you've got nothing, you really got nothing to do there. So I don't blame him for taking a look at his squad and being like, right, what's the best way to get results out of this? Sit back, defend well, don't concede, hit him on the counter. The problem is, I understand he's got a system and he knows how he's going to play. I think he's just been, the numbers say right now, he's been pulling results out of his ass. And how long can you go on like that? Solskjaer came into United and they just started winning, and everybody and their mother was like, this is unsustainable. No one disagreed with that. The numbers people looked at and they said, this is unsustainable. United are on a hot finishing run and their opponents are on a very cold finishing run. But if you look at the underlying numbers, they have improved. So it's not that United are going to come crashing back down to Jose levels, which they actually did. But it was, the numbers underneath them were better. And then last year they got better again. With Arteta, they haven't gotten any better from Emery. They're just the same. And Aubameyang caught fire at the end of the season and started finishing. And all of a sudden their opponents weren't finishing. They got great goalkeeper play. And they rode that to an FA Cup. And kudos to them. Do not take away from winning a trophy, because that's a great accomplishment. Most managers don't do that. That doesn't happen by accident, but that's also not to say that there isn't an element of luck in there. So I just don't see this lasting an entire season. You've got Aubameyang, who's 31. You're for help. You signed the 32.
He's not really hit his top form, has he? To be honest, Aubameyang,
and I don't think he will.
He's not looked sharp.
He's got that paper, and now he's stopping to play.
But right, well, yeah, he got that money and posted the "I'm home" video. This is my home thing. After you very much were trying to get a better contract from somewhere else.
To Barcelona, mate. That's where he would have gone if it happened.
Of course, he was trying to get a better look. Paul Pogba, if he ever signs another United contract, will put out the same post. Manchester is always my home, but it's like, we all know that if someone came and offered you more money, you were out the door. And it's like that for every player. That's why I just find those PR posts hilarious, because every player, if you gave them more money somewhere else with better weather, they're out the door in a minute.
De Gea and his fax machine.
It's true.
That's a different one. I actually think De Gea was in on that. That's a conspiracy theory for a different time.
Okay.
But you got Aubameyang, who, if you look at his goals per 90, they have been dropping for the last 4 years. So, he scored 22 goals last year. He scored 22 goals the year before. He played a lot more last year. To help him, you brought in Willian. I know you guys like to hate on me for the after 30, you basically shrivel up, go into an old age home and die thing. But that's exactly what, there are mountains of evidence that tell us this. There are outliers, the best of the best. Obviously, there's Messi, there's Ronaldo. Jamie Vardy has been fighting off father time. There are always outliers, but the overwhelming evidence suggests this is what happens. And now factor this in, like, you're playing a 10-month season in 9 months. So that's difficult for anybody, let alone players on older legs. And it's not an apples to apples comparison. It's more of an apples to pears comparison. But if you look at what happened in 1999 with the NBA lockout, and they came back for a condensed 50-game season that was rushed. They didn't get as much time off between games. They had a lot more back-to-backs. The old teams just couldn't handle it. They broke down. And it's really like, what do Arsenal have after Aubameyang and Willian? You're relying on Lacazette again, who Arsenal fans have been trying to run out the door since 3 months after they signed him. It's hard to see them being able to sustain this over an entire season.
Some great points there. Ciaran, I'm going to let you have the floor on this. Do you agree with what Pauly's saying? What I will say with Arteta is that I think if you gave him money, let's say he took over the City squad, I think you'd see maybe not Pep level sort of I guess performances, but they'd be there and thereabouts. I think Arteta clearly he's no mug. I'm not saying Pauly said that, but clearly, like you look at Lampard and you think, what's the system? Arteta, you know what it is. Clearly, for someone in his first job, he's doing a fantastic. He's settled in much better than I think most managers would in their first ever job at a big club.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, he was basically number 2 to Pep. So he knows how you're supposed to run a dressing room. He's been in some top teams. So I'm not worried about kind of that side of his managerial stance. What I worry about is the current club and the current set of players he has, because you have Aubameyang, who's a great attacking outlet, but you don't have much more that you would say would get into a City or a Liverpool team when you're talking about their attacking players, and even to a certain point their defensive players. So it's something that's worrying. I feel like if Arteta was the Chelsea manager, I think you'd be seeing them play a lot better than they are under Lampard. If he gets back to, let's say if he gets, I think Atletico came out and said that they're not selling Partey this year, but OR from Lyon, I think he's a great player. If they got him, you'd see more attacking intent from them. I think you'd see maybe some of the styles of play that he wants to implement, because right now you look at it and you have Xhaka, Guendouzi, I don't know who else is their centre midfield. You've Torreira, who they're trying to get rid of. So like, it's tough when you don't have the central midfield that you want to be able to play the way. The thing is, he has one of the better strikers in the Premier League in Aubameyang. But like we've said, he started extremely slow this season, and really it seems to be for the last year or so with Arsenal is wherever Arsenal go is where Aubameyang takes them. And you need more options than that. Yeah, we say Saka had a good breakout season. We say that Pepe had some good games, even though like most fans will slag him off. You have Lacazette, who I don't really rate that much, but so I think with what he's had, he's done well and he's provided some good results, but he needs improvement in that team. If they don't get the improvements that they want, I don't think you're going to see Arteta kind of improve the Arsenal team to where their fans expect them to. Now, I know there's different sets of fans for Arsenal. Some of them think that they're still title contenders for some strange reason. And then there's the more kind of, I would say, sophisticated Arsenal fan that knows, like where they know where they're going, and that if they get the players in, they could challenge for kind of top 4 or 5. But if they don't, then I just can't see it. That's the issue I think he's in. I think his system will work. I think he knows what he's doing in terms of his tactics. The problem is I don't think he has the players right now to actually implement what he wants at Arsenal.
Yeah, fantastic points. I'm going to move on, guys, because we've only got less than 10 minutes left. I think, it's all about who he gets in. If they can get Aouar in, even if they get Partey in, I think Arsenal will. That's some fantastic summer, isn't it, with Gabriel? Willian's not a bad signing. I wouldn't want him at United, but I think if they do get these signings, they could very, very possibly challenge for the top 4. Otherwise, I don't think they will. I've spoken to a lot of Arsenal fans, and they've said, one of them said 8th to 10th. I think that's being a little bit negative. But then there's other people that say, oh, we're going to finish top 4. And I'm like, and someone said they're going to challenge Liverpool. Someone last night, he's a good friend of mine. He knows who he is. He lives in Australia. And he said to me last night, because he speaks to someone at the club, I can't say who it is, and he passed on some transfer information for me. I went to go and get it confirmed, and the person who I spoke to, who again is very connected with Arsenal, said it's not true. But what I will say is that he said that Arsenal are looking to challenge Liverpool. Now, they're light years. They need to go up to United and Chelsea first before they go to Liverpool. So he's an Arsenal fan.
Wolves first.
Yeah, they need to go to Wolves first. Exactly. I mean, look, Leeds are looking better than them. But what I will say is
it's been 3 games. Like let's calm down.
To be fair, Leeds have looked better than most teams.
Right.
Mate,
it's weird. It's a weird season, but I always say because every season City open up and like in August they win 3 games by like the combined score of 15-1. and everybody goes, they're unstoppable this year. And I'm like, it's always easy to play coming into the season when the weather's nice. Like, let's wait till it gets cold, like it gets rainy, and games start coming thick and fast. You know, usually in August, you have 3 or 4 games, and it's once a week, and that's it. And then in September, the Champions League starts. So this year we've had the League Cup, but Lampard and Solskjaer have rotated their squads. Pep has, but De Bruyne, Sterling, Mars, they've been playing. So next month when the Champions League starts and you're playing 2 games a week, like that's when weird things start to happen, and that's when it becomes, can you sustain this? And then in December when everybody has to start playing twice a week, that's when the club with the hot start, like Leeds or them, that's when they start to, fall off. Like,
absolutely.
I think one big thing this year is the Europa League's going to be even worse for the teams that are in it this year than they have been before, with the amount of games that have to be played in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, Tottenham. I mean, they're on their 7th game of the year already or something like that.
Yeah. But guys, we've got to move on. So I'm going to ask you in 1 minute, and we're going to do this quickly. We're going to talk about VAR and the new handball rule. I mean, what an absolute farce what's going on at the moment. You saw with Lindelof against Palace. The Spurs one. I mean, I feel for Jose. They so should have. They so should have. Yeah, they so should have. I went upstairs.
All the bad things happened.
Yeah, I went upstairs and I was like, oh, okay, 88th minute or 86th minute. Okay, well, Spurs are going to
that actually was probably the best thing that happened to Jose, because he gets to blame VAR now when Tottenham should have been 4-0 up. They just didn't play. He told the team, go kill out this game at 1-0. And one of my friends was like, this is going to come back to bite us. And there was a tactical foul, like in the 70-something minute. And he goes, if they tie this game, he goes, that's your man of the match right there.
Yeah, exactly. And what I will say to you guys, I'm going to give you a minute, but one positive I'll say, I mean, it's a joke, the rule, but at least VAR has been better, I think, this year so far. Having the referee go off the pitch and have a look and monitor just makes it a lot better. The second thing I will say is that at least it's consistent. We saw Lindelof get a handball. Although, to be fair, Kai Havertz hit his hand for the equaliser. The 3-1 coming around.
Also, Thiago comes in, makes a little bit of contact, gives a penalty. Okay, but the day before, Pogba got stamped on that his shoe comes off. No penalty. So there's still the element of inconsistency there. And that's never going to go away. You have humans making a choice here. So there's always going to be a level of inconsistency.
Pauly, I'm going to ask you 1 minute, talk about the new handball rule and VAR, either or, I don't mind, and go.
I need more than a minute, but it's just dumb. Like, what happened, ball to hand. Ball to hand is not a handball. It's hand to ball. Yeah, enough with that. It's been 10 seconds. My whole thing on this has always been, if you chop the player's arms off, if it's going to hit your body, if you chop off my arms and that ball would have hit my body, then it's not handball. Like when Paul Pogba puts his hands up like this against West Ham, that's not a handball. Like, you shouldn't be penalized for protecting your face, because if you chop his arms off and his hands aren't there, the ball smacks him in the face. If his hand is up here and the ball hits him over here and you chop his arm off, it wouldn't have hit him. That's a handball. But the ball to hand thing, it's become too much. Remember, like, we put in VAR to correct clear and obvious errors. It's not in the spirit of the game to go and just look at a teeny tiny little thing and find out why it happens. It's also why I hate the offside thing. Like,
guys, we just muted Pauly if you're listening on audio because he had 1 minute. He's making some fantastic points. I completely agree with your summary. I'm going to unmute you, and please don't swear at me or shout at me. Ciaran, I'm going to give you 1 minute. You agree with Pauly?
Yeah, look, I agree. It's, to a certain extent, we have to put some common sense into it. If you're kicking a ball where a defender is about a yard or 2 away and hits their hand, it shouldn't be a handball, because there's nothing they can do to get their hands out of the way. If they move their arm to where you've kicked the ball, okay, fine. But the one thing that I would say is what you said, Haider, is at least we know there's consistency where if the ball hits your hand, it's a penalty. Look, the rule is ridiculous because it's not the way we've kind of grown up watching it. But so I guess but again, people need to remember it's not VAR's fault. They're just implementing the rule they've been given. I think they've actually done a pretty decent job this year. It's it's really whoever made this ridiculous rule they need to kind of go back on it because it's crazy.
Absolutely. It's the people that, as Roy Hodgson said, non-footballing people making footballing decisions. Sound familiar, guys? Man United,
I knew you
Edward,
would get mad.
I bet it's Matt George that's doing it.
I just have one thing to add, and I promise it won't be more than 30 seconds. The players will adapt to this. Remember at the beginning of last year, we were seeing a lot of armpit offsides, and we don't see that as often anymore. In other leagues, they put this rule in. They implemented this rule either last year or 2 years ago, and we saw a lot of handballs at the beginning of the season, and then they tempered off. So the players who are very, very, very good at their jobs will adapt to this. We saw it last week. Lindelof was slow to close down defender, and he didn't block the shot because he was busy putting his arms behind his back and running with his arms behind his back, which slows him down. But players, they will adapt. We'll get less handballs. Will it mean it's harder to defend? There'll be more goals? Probably.
Yeah, great points. Guys, let's move on to Liverpool. The final bit. It's going to be, we'll only do 5 minutes on this because it's too painful for me to talk about. But you have to give credit where credit is due. We'll start with you, Ciaran. Look, I tweeted out after the Liverpool game. After the Arsenal game. They looked so comfortable. They just looked a level above, didn't they? There's not really a weakness in that side. I know you can probably say maybe in the midfield they can maybe have a bit more creativity, but it works. And I feel like they're not playing as explosive as they have been in the previous years with that Gengen pressing. I feel like they're a bit more measured in their play because they know that they can do everything, can't they? They could also sit back if they wanted to. They can control the tempo now with that midfield. They can do so many things. They're just the complete team. And there's this air of just arrogance, invincibility that we saw. And I tweeted out saying it reminds me of the United of old. And I didn't get rubbish for it, but I got people saying, oh, well, United did it for 10 years. I'm like, that's not the point, mate. Well, I'm just saying right now, when you're seeing the way Liverpool, they step on the pitch and the opposition is beaten before they even start the game, that's a sign of a top side. And they're a top side. I can't see beyond them in the sense of anyone else winning the title. But what I will say is, I know I'm bringing back to United, but I'm fully convinced that if Ollie had been backed, then United could have closed that gap on City, and they could have been the ones being the closest to Liverpool because that spot behind Liverpool is there for the taking, I think.
Yeah, I think Liverpool, like you said, they remind me of that kind of 07, and then maybe kind of add a couple of years onto that where teams knew that when United were playing them, they're probably going to score quite a lot of goals. So it was hard to kind of get past them. For me, the only weakness I see in Liverpool is probably Roberto Firmino. I still don't think he's good enough as a striker if you really want to be challenging for Premier League and Champions League in the same year. We saw that he missed some crucial chances when it came to that Atletico game. So I think that's one area they could improve on. But again, it's hard to say that there's a big weakness in that team because you see them play and they look at a completely different level than any other team in the Premier League. Defensively, yeah, there's weaknesses at the two wing backs, but they produce so much in the attacking sense of the game that it really doesn't matter. And that's where you see like teams like Leeds try to attack. They went down the channels on Liverpool and they found success. But the problem is Liverpool can score as quickly as you score on them. So it's one of those that it just reminds me of a top team that really there's going to be other teams that are probably going to have to wait for this kind of not dynasty but mini run for this team to kind of end. And it's like what a lot of teams did when they knew Ferguson was coming towards the end of his career, that there's no point in trying to overtake United right now and spend loads and loads now when there's gonna come a time that this is gonna end. So I think that's where we're at. I think Liverpool are a class above anybody else, and it's gonna take one hell of a team to stop them.
Fantastic points, Pauly. I'm going to ask you. Ciaran makes a great point about this, just waiting for them to, I guess, for Klopp to go. That's really what it is. I mean, is that what it is? Is it? Do you think that when Klopp does go, because he will go, he'll either take the Bayern job or he'll take a German job, or he could even take the Real job. He's the best manager in the world for me. But do you think when he does go, this all goes with him, or have they put the foundations in place to be successful for a decade? Because when I'm looking at it now, they've got a side that is aging. You have to admit, you look at Salah, Firmino, Mane, they're all, 28, 29? they're on the older side, so they will need to be replaced eventually. But there are weaknesses in the side. I think Trent at fullback defensively, he can be got at. I think defensively, although Van Dijk, he just is taking that side to another level. But whoever partners next to him, there is a deficiency there. And I do think in midfield, sometimes the creativity element of it. But look, they are the best team in England right now. And realistically, until Klopp goes, they are going to be the ones that will be the favourites every year, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because he's going to go. I don't think he goes to Bayern. I don't think he goes to Real Madrid. He doesn't like that glitz and glamour. United tried to get Jurgen Klopp, and he turned them down partially because he said Ed Woodward made it sound like managing an Old Trafford was Disneyland. But he also liked Liverpool because he was attracted to that rugged, working class, city and atmosphere of the type of club. And so I don't think he wants the glitz and the glamour of, Real Madrid will just buy players, or Bayern, we're just going to snatch up anybody who does well in the Bundesliga. He wants the Germany. At this point, I think he's basically he's a Dortmund guy and he's a Liverpool guy, and those are his clubs. I don't think he's going to another club. He wants the Germany job, and then he'll retire and go into punditry and live out his life like that, which is involved in the game, but not overall consumed by the game. And I think he's happy with that. When he leaves, though, it's interesting because Liverpool do have this in place. One of the reasons that they fired Brendan Rodgers was because he didn't get along with Michael Edwards and he didn't see eye to eye with him. Edwards was saying, these are the players that we're going to sign. And Rodgers was like, no, those aren't the ones that I want. And every so often Liverpool would cave and be like, we'll give Rodgers a player that he wants. And they all turned out to be busts. The ones that Edwards was signing turned out to be good. Who knew? Analytics works. And Klopp came in and didn't fully trust Edwards right away either, but Edwards won him over. So Edwards sees what Klopp wants, or what the kind of manager that Klopp wants and the players that he needs, and he's very good at identifying them and bringing them in, but there's still a huge Jurgen Klopp level there. And part of what spurs Liverpool on is the players' love for Klopp. They want to win for Klopp. Like United's, the Fergie teams, you can almost say they wanted to win because they were so scared of Ferguson if they lost. And with Klopp, it's they want to win for him. Like even the games that that don't mean it. They hit 90 something points, 97, 98 points 2 years in a row. Like with using a pretty thin squad. So when he leaves, they are an aging squad. Am I confident that they have the people in place to rebuild that squad and freshen it up? Yes, 100%. But then you also have to find the right manager that can take the players that Edwards will provide you with and get them.
Who can you see? Could you see Nagelsmann or someone like that taking over?
It's got to. Yeah, you're not bringing in a
probably him.
You're not bringing in a continental manager. I could see. It's a rip because this has basically happened every step of his career. But I could see Tuchel coming in and being successful. But Tuchel then ran into problems with the board at Dortmund.
Pochettino is another one that could do very well.
Let's hope they hire Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, right.
I hope so. Do you think that's a possibility, Steven Gerrard, Pauly?
Yes, 100%. And I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing all these club legends get the job is because teams have realized when you hire an Ancelotti or a Mourinho or an Allegri, in 3 years they're gone, and they just want to win, and they're going to do things to get themselves to win. You look at Conte at Inter Milan; he's signing Ashley Young and Christian Eriksen and Alexis Sanchez, players that are going to help me now. Are they going to help you in 2 years? No. And does that come at the expense of playing whatever Inter's equivalent of Mason Greenwood or Brandon Williams is? Yes. And the sell-on market no longer really exists. Clubs aren't paying big sums of money for older players anymore. So if you sign these guys, if you bring in Antonio Conte on a 3-year deal and he signs somebody for 5 years, but Conte only lasts 2 years, you now have 3 years of this player that you can't move on, making it harder for the next guy to come in. So teams have realized we can't just freely spend. There has to be an element of internal building, and that means there's going to be time. You may not win as much as you want right away. Well, who's going to get that leeway? If you bring in an Ancelotti and he doesn't win right away, you're throwing him out. But if you bring in club legend Frank Lampard or club legend Steven Gerrard, the fans will already, or Andrea Pirlo, the fans are going to be more willing to give him the time that he needs to build up a squad, and like what Solskjaer had to do is tear one down. The next Liverpool manager is going to have to do that. He's going to have to phase out Mane, Firmino, Salah. They're going to be too old, and build up a squad. And you need time. And I think Steven Gerrard would be afforded that time because the fans love him so much that as long as you get what Solskjaer was giving you last year, and Gerrard's English, so the media will be much kinder to him. You could see progress on the pitch. The fans will buy into that and give him that time. But that's going to be Liverpool's ultimate problem is they'll be able to recruit the right players. Do they have the manager to make them into a cohesive brand and take them to the next level?
Some fantastic points. Guys, we're going to have to wrap up there. My last point on that is that, one, there's a massive synergy at Liverpool between the fans, the players, the managers.
All bought in.
Yeah, they've all bought in. And that's what we had. And that's what we had under Sir Alex. And when you look at United now, we're so divided as a fan base. And I just think, why are you smiling? We're not going to go into this now.
Have you ever read Daniel Taylor's "This Is the One"?
No.
It's decent, but it's a chronicle of the 05-06 season. Yeah, and then the 06-07 season. So 05-06 is the third straight year that United weren't winning, and all it was fans running Fergie out of town. The patience they had it. They're like, maybe his time is done. So yeah. I don't know if we've all bought in totally.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, guys. We're gonna have to wrap up here because I think Ciaran, nature's calling for him. So, guys, thank you very much, Pauly. It's been a pleasure, mate. Maybe we should get you on the weekly show more often. I think you'd be a great.
Not if you want to keep it to 45 minutes.
That's completely fine, mate. This has been absolutely. I think it's been so interesting. We've gone into so much depth. Ciaran, go and enjoy yourself in the toilet, mate. Guys, thank you very much. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This show is on every week. We might be having Pauly every week. We will.